What is going on, everybody? NTC here, and I am back for another episode of Overwatch Weekly, but this one is special because we are talking about Overwatch at BlizzCon 2018. This past weekend on Friday and Saturday was BlizzCon in Anaheim, California, and there were a bunch of Overwatch announcements, Overwatch-related events, Overwatch news, all that kind of stuff, so I'm going to try to cover everything. I may miss a couple things. I don't know if I compiled every little thing from BlizzCon. I'm hoping I did, but we're going to jump into this with the first story, the biggest story, which surrounded or centered around the BlizzCon opening ceremony, where we got two reveals. The first thing we got is a new animated short reunion. It focuses on McCree and the Deadlock Gang and a mysterious Omnic known as Echo that we see at the end of the animated short. And along with this animated short came the reveal of our 29th hero, which happens to not be Echo, but rather Ashe, the leader of the Deadlock Gang that we see in the animated short. If you have not seen the animated short or anything about Ashe, her lore video, her overview video, anything like that, I will have a link to all of that in the description, as well as a video linked in the cards. Two videos, actually. One where I show you her abilities, and one where I show you her unlockable, skins, all that kind of stuff. So those will both be linked in the cards and in the description, plus a bunch of other different things that the Overwatch YouTube channel has put out there for everyone to check out. Speaking of Echo, because I know people are going to ask about Echo, who is she? What is she important for? Whatever reason. Throughout the entirety of BlizzCon, throughout tons of different interviews, throughout tons of different whatever, we learned a couple things about Echo. Number one, Echo is the character that we see in that early sketch by Arnold Sang. I'll try to link to it, or I'll try to put that image in the video. Hopefully it goes through, but it is the same character. She does not have any connection to Athena. Well, she would have a connection, but she is not Athena, as some people believed she was. And she will not be Hero 30. Jeff Kaplan said that on Fran's stream. I guess he was getting asked a lot if Echo would be Hero 30, and just decided that it was more worthwhile to say 100% no, she will not be the 30th hero, but she will be on the way. He also did confirm in that same Fran stream that he knows what type of hero she will be, whether or not she is an attack hero, or a damage hero, I guess, or if she's a support or a tank. I would put my money behind support. Jeff definitely made it seem like she won't be a tank, but she won't be Hero 30, so don't get your hopes up for that as Hero 30, but there is a chance that we get her somewhat soon in the future. But that is all I have on Ashe. We do know, Ashe and Echo, we do know that they do currently have 6 other heroes in development in various stages. Hero 30, as Jeff Kaplan confirmed on his stream with Fran, confirmed that we should be getting Hero 30 around the same time we normally do, because he said that Hero 30 is basically fully integrated in the game and at Blizzard in their playtesting, all that kind of stuff. So that's usually the way it is. They just wait, every so often. So we should hopefully have Hero 30 announced at some point late February or early March, much like Brigitte. She was uploaded announced February 28th of last year, so the very end of the month. So I expect about the same thing with Hero 30. We don't know when yet, but eventually we will find out. That's about everything I have on that new hero front. Some interesting stuff there. Like I said, I have a bunch of links in the description, including a link to Fran's stream with Jeff Kaplan. If you want to check that out, that will also be linked in the description. A lot of interesting stuff from that stream. I'll talk about a little bit more as we get further into this video, but that stream was quite possibly the most informative thing that Jeff Kaplan did the entirety of BlizzCon, in my opinion. Next, we have a story that I talked about in the past, but we officially have an announcement for it. We don't have to wonder if it will actually be real, though we were all pretty sure it was real, and that is Lucio O's are real. They were officially announced. To my knowledge, we don't have an official release date for them yet, but we can expect them in December from what I saw, because that is what somebody said. I believe there was something. I believe it was said during the panel, or not the panel, during the opening ceremony, like pre-show thing. They kind of mentioned that we could see him, we would get him in December. So I'm hoping that that's early December, but we'll have to wait and see where they are. But I'll link to a trailer in the description for that, if you want to check that out. Another interesting thing surrounding Lucio that we got is that if you want to download Lucio's album for free, you can do that until November 20th at luciomusic.com. Link is in the description. I've done it. I've listened to it. It's not too bad. It's pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of that style of music, but I thought it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I wasn't like, wow, this is a really bad album. I thought it was pretty good. So that is in the description down below if you want to check that out. Next, the LEGO Overwatch sets that I talked about that were leaked, that were potentially going to be coming, they have in fact been announced, and we got the piece count prices for all those confirmed. They are available January 1st according to this IGN article. I don't remember them ever officially saying when they would be around. I know they're up for pre-order now on Blizzard's website. I'm going to have a link in a video in that playlist, which is a hands-on look at all the sets, about 20 minutes long. If you want to see all the sets, the minifigures, all that kind of stuff. There's some stuff missing, but in the playlist is a video where you can check all that stuff out. To recap, in case you missed it, I won't be putting any images on the video, but you can check the IGN link in the description or the hands-on video to get a look at all the sets. But there is the Tracer vs. Widowmaker set, which is 129 pieces and retails for $14.99. Hanzo vs. Genji, which is 197 pieces for $19.99. All of these prices in USD, of course, should mention that. We've Dorado Showdown, which is 419 pieces, retailing for $30. Very good value for a $30 set, 419 pieces. That's a really good value. Diva and Reinhardt, 455 pieces for $39.99, also a good value. Bastion, 602 pieces for $49.99, very good value. No minifigures in that set, just a buildable Bastion, which is probably why the price is a little bit lower. And then Watchpoint Gibraltar, which is 730 pieces for $89.99. Little pricey, but not too bad. The most expensive set, under $100, not that bad. So those are your sets, those are the official prices. As I said, hands-on video in the description in the playlist, as well as a link to an IGN article that has some pictures if you want to check those out. Next, we have an interview. This is one that Jeff Kaplan and Nicole Gillette did with Reddit. It's on the Overwatch subreddit. I think it's a pinned link in the Overwatch subreddit. You've probably already seen it, but I'll kind of talk about it a little bit, go through each question just slightly, and kind of go through the general answers. So the first question is that if they could change something about the game that's currently in the game, obviously, but it's hard or would take time, what would they do? Jeff Kaplan mentioned the match queue, which is when you're in quick play, right? You play a game, and then when the game ends, you just stay in that same game. You just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Whereas in competitive play, you play a game, game ends, then you have to queue up again. He would like that single match queue that we see in competitive to be in both quick play and competitive. But he thinks that the time and the effort it would take would be a little bit too much and probably not worth it. So he hasn't done much with that. They were asked about making a new map, what's the general process, and Nicole Gillette essentially said it really differs. It could be that we want to make a location in the real world into Overwatch. It could be we need to make a location for a lore reason or anything like that. It could just be something we want to do. There's all different reasons that she gives, but it's always kind of like whatever we feel like doing. When asked about player-made items. Jeff Catlin says he really likes them. He likes seeing them on Reddit and all that kind of stuff, but implementing it is a little hard, and that's where he kind of is a little iffy. He doesn't know if they're going to be able to implement the kinds of things that people make. And, a map editor, why can't there be that? Because the engine for the map editor is very unique, and he's just a little iffy on doing all these kinds of things. I don't expect them to ever put any of this stuff in there, but they could in theory, so maybe at some point in time we will see player-made content in Overwatch. They also talk about the World Cup viewer and having to build stuff up, which Jeff essentially just says it's difficult and it's not always easy, and that there's kind of issues with if they work on one thing, then people kind of say they're focusing too much time on that, but if they work on that, then that allows them to improve something else in the long run, and it's just kind of this whole back and forth, and it's kind of a hard issue. Talked about crossplay. They would like to do it, but it's a little hard. Then they talk about Ashe a little bit and her kind of the way she was created, and there's a lot of interesting stuff here. If you want to read this, of course, they talk about Athena again and Echo. I'm not going to do everything here, just because there's a lot of stuff here. But if you want to check it out, there is a link in the description. It's a really good interview. It's one of my favorite interviews so far. I think it's one of the better interviews he did. So link to that in the description as well. Next, we're going to talk about some of the other reveals from Fran's live stream. There's a little bit kind of everywhere, thrown around, all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try to pull as much stuff as I can out of it. But it's a little interesting. So some of the stuff he talked about in this interview with Fran. He also did an interview with Iman GG. I didn't find as much interesting stuff in there, but that is also linked in that playlist. You can watch it in that playlist. There's a lot of content in that playlist, a lot of hours of content, panels, trailers, anything like that. A lot of different things in there for you to watch if you want to watch them. So there's that. But also in Fran's stream, we talked about a couple other things, including the events and story mode, that's type stuff, and comics, all these kind of lore-based events. And the simple part of it with these kind of story mode events and these archives type events is that these things take a long time to develop, and they love doing them, but they're time consuming. And it's not so much that it takes them that long to get the story, it's that they want it to be a very high quality event, and they want it to be worthwhile, that you're going to want to play it over and over and over again because they want to make sure it's fun and all that kind of stuff. So there's been a lot of time doing that, and that with a story mode, it would probably have to be a different game because of how much work it would be to implement a full-on story mode into the thing. PvE as a game type had to be completely built up and added into the game. It was never originally intended to be there, and of course they started that with Junkenstein's Revenge back in Halloween Terror 2016, and then we saw in Archives, which was originally just called the Uprising event in 2017, we saw them do the Uprising event, and then we saw Retribution in 2018. So those are the kind of things that they have to build up from the ground, and they're kind of difficult for them to do. So he didn't say that a story mode is never going to come. He didn't say like they're never going to do a story mode. It would just be challenging and would likely be a separate game entirely if they did do it, because it would be too much work to just add it into the game. It would make more sense just to build it up as a separate game, because it would probably be less work and probably be easier to do in that way. Speaking though also lore type things, he talked about comics as well, and said that they have an interesting direction with comics, and they want to do more stuff with comics. My theory is they did hire another writer a couple months ago. I don't remember how long ago. It was probably like 3 months ago now. Maybe even more than that. They hired a new writer, and she's a fiction writer, short stories, stuff like that. So comics or short stories could be coming. We could be getting more frequency with those comics soon. We don't know yet, but that is where we are with that. Like I said, this is all from Fran's live stream. The full stream is linked in the description, as well as a couple just Twitch clips if you want to check those out for some of these things that I've talked about. I'll kind of put those in a kind of area all to themselves. But that's that. We have a couple other things to cover, though. Jeff Kaplan did an interview with Eurogamer, if you want to read that. A lot of it is the same stuff that I've talked about. With when can we get Ashe, which of course we already have Ashe now, so those questions don't really mean anything anymore, because she is available on the PTR now to play. Asking if Echo is Athena, which they're not, obviously. There was no Echo come to the game. Yes, they did. What kind of role is she? They're not going to talk about it yet. All that kind of stuff. But there is one interesting thing, which is that, is it realistic that there could one day be an Overwatch Netflix series or something similar? And Jeff said that that's always possible. We'd be crazy to think that those are not the kinds of thoughts that run through their mind. In general, kind of like, overall, he's of the mindset that they would love to do it. That's not something they'd love to do, but is that their main focus right now? No, their main focus is developing the game, but at the end of the day, that is the kind of stuff that they could do and would like to do in the future. Maybe, if possible. They talk about the loot boxes and the issues that they have in Belgium, where you cannot purchase loot boxes in Belgium anymore. You can only get them through gameplay. They talk about kind of a battle pass system from Fortnite in Overwatch, where Jeff Kaplan says it works, it's cool, but it's unlikely that Overwatch will ever get something like that. Talking about the upfront fee of Overwatch dropping. And he says at the moment they have no plans or haven't given any serious thought to making Overwatch free to play. Talked about some disciplinary action in the Overwatch League, to which Jeff said, look, these are young guys and women, and stuff is a little weird, but overall the good events were far more frequent than the bad events. The bad events just took the light, which is the way it is in everything, and I totally agree with Jeff on that. And then a big question, which was one that I was a little like, oh man, this is a question that like could break everyone's hearts, and it has to do with Mike Morhaime stepping down and J. Allen Brack coming in as the new president of Blizzard, and teams kind of shuffling and games being worked on and all that other stuff, and new projects coming in and people moving around. And they were asking Jeff, are you still going to be working on Overwatch? And he said, at the moment, or specifically at this time, what excites me more than anything is really pouring my heart and soul into Overwatch. So we can expect Jeffy, good old Daddy Jeff, Papa Jeff Kaplan, to still work on Overwatch for the foreseeable future. And that's just the best thing I've heard all day, all week, all month, all year. It's great. I love Jeff Kaplan. I think he's one of the best game devs out there. He really cares. You can see how passionate he is. He's very open with game development and with talking. Whenever he's on a stream, he really, really, really takes his time to kind of be upfront and be open about everything. And I think it's really, really cool. Not a lot of game devs do that anymore. And I think that Jeff is just one of the best developers out there right now. And I think that he really deserves tons of support and love and credit for the work that he does. We're going to move into the final two things, which is really one thing connected, but it's two different days, and it is the Overwatch World Cup. We saw a very exciting Overwatch World Cup. We're going to start with day one, Friday. What happened? So the schedule, you had the United States take on the United Kingdom, you had France take on Canada, China take on Finland, and then South Korea take on Australia, in that order. The first game of the day, the United Kingdom with an upset over the United States, 3-1. A lot of people had the United States winning the entire World Cup, and the United Kingdom came out and they performed incredibly. I mean, I was impressed. I was amazed by how well they played. and they looked very, very, very good. Like a team that had put in work, had practiced, and was ready to be at BlizzCon. France versus Canada. Canada 3-0 dominant victory over France. I watched a lot of that game, a good portion of that game. Canada just looked a lot more prepared, and they just looked dominant. Then you had China versus Finland. I fell asleep during that game, so I didn't watch the whole thing. But from what I did see, China was dominant. Same goes for South Korea against Australia. I fell asleep at the beginning of that game, so I missed most of that one, but South Korea looked dominant. For the most part, there were some moments where Australia looked like they could have maybe taken a win or two, or taken a map maybe, but they just couldn't pull it off. So we had the UK moving on to face South Korea, and Canada moving on to face China on day 2 in the semifinals. So we got to the semifinals. The first game of the day was South Korea versus the United Kingdom, and let me tell you, that is one of the best games of Overwatch I've seen in my entire life. 4 maps. It's best of 5, so you have to win. In theory, you have to win 3. In reality, you don't have to win 3. You just have to get to a point where the other team cannot have more wins than you can. It was a 4-map thriller. The first map went to South Korea. Looked pretty dominant. Looked very much like South Korea. We're just going to roll right through the UK. 3 straight maps, boom, 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 and be done. Map 2, it was a draw. Map 3, it was a draw. Map 4, on Rialto, super, super, super close. It was a thriller. It was incredible, and South Korea managed to pull out the victory 2-0 overall and walk away with the victory in the semifinals and move on to the finals. Incredible match. It was really, really, really great. Semifinal number 2, China versus Canada. China came out swinging. 3-0 victory over Canada. Not even an issue for them. It was crazy. So we move into the bronze medal match, which was exciting. It was a 3-2 victory for Canada over Team UK, but Team UK needs to be proud of how well they played, seeing as the team consists of 1 player with Overwatch League experience plus 1 player who is signed to a team, signed with Paris in Cruz, and a player that has just now been signed to the Boston Uprising as a 2-way player in Fusions, their main tank player. A very impressive team. They looked very, very great. Honestly, like, the UK shocked everyone, played out of their minds, and I think they need to be proud of what they did. But then we get to the finals, the gold medal match, South Korea versus China, and if anyone's surprised at the outcome, South Korea 3-peat, won it over China, 4-0 victory. But China also played really well this World Cup. I think a lot of these players deserve to be signed to teams. It was an impressive set for them. China was not expected to make the finals. Right, everyone had Canada going, and China managed to make it. Now, it wasn't, obviously they didn't win anything, in the finals. They didn't win the gold medal match. They walked away with the silver medal, but for a region that I think has been for so long kind of overlooked for its skill, I think people have been looking, especially after what happened with the Shanghai Dragons Season 1 of the Overwatch League. People were kind of off the train for the Chinese Overwatch scene, but they're back, and they're still here, and they're dominant, and they're good, and a lot of these players deserve to be on a roster, whether they be on the Chengdu roster, whether they be on the Hangzhou roster, the Guangzhou roster, any other roster in the Overwatch League. They deserve a spot. But that, my friends, is everything I have to talk about this week. Yeah, BlizzCon, a lot of cool stuff. I know a lot of this is just kind of, hey, here's what kind of stuff was talked about. Please check out this link in the description. But there's just so much stuff that showing you clips is just kind of not the best way to get it across. I think there's just so much information that really, the information that interests you is the information you should check out. I'm kind of trying to save you some time if you want to know as much as you can in a shorter time as possible. This video is a little longer than usual, but it was BlizzCon, it's a lot of stuff. There has been some other information that's coming out, but I'm going to save all that for next week. Next week might be a little bit longer of a video as well, just kind of catching up on these past couple weeks of information. But thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed any other content on this channel, consider liking and subscribing. Helps out a ton. Starting a new series on Monday, focusing on the Overwatch League and the teams. So there'll be a new episode out on Friday. At least there should be. There should be no reason why it wouldn't be out. And it will focus on the Florida Mayhem this week, or this time around. So I hope you enjoy that. I will see you all next video. But until then, enjoy. Have a nice day. Have a nice rest of your week, and I'll talk to you all later. Alright, bye-bye.